Alrighty, today we are beginning the assembly process of my 4L60E transmission. We have already sprayed out third gear capsule. There was clutch debris lodged in the check ball there. We have also cleaned out the 2.4 servo. There was a ton of clutch debris that was built up in here. It is very important to clean all this out. You do not want any debris messing with the hydraulics of the transmission. Can cause some issues. And that goes for any part in the transmission. You always want to make sure that it is super clean and spotless. So we're going to begin with all the pieces.
Go over a little bit of stuff here. We're going to actually break this video into probably 3 or 4 little segments. We're just going to go over the stuff for the lower half of the transmission right now, and then we'll be going over the forward drum and pump and other components in other videos. But for right now, the clutches we're using are the Asbestos Stage 1. They're a red clutch. They have a tiny bit of cotton mixed in with the cellulose. They're a really good performance clutch. I've used them in a lot of hard-working 1-tons and street rod kind of trucks and tow trucks. They're just a great clutch. Moving to the next section here. Throughout the whole transmission, it's going to have brand new Ingersoll Rand coil bearings. All the bearings were completely worn out. It was a high mile unit when we tore it down, so it's going to have all brand new bearings. This is the old rear planet where the overrun race for the low and reverse, sprag locked onto it. These lugs were beat out. The pinion gears checked out okay, and the thrust checked out okay, but where that overrun race locked onto, or splined onto rather, it was pretty beat and pretty loose. So the new planet that's going on here, it's brand new, and it actually has the oil holes that are gun drilled through the center of the pinion pins. I personally, and this is just a me thing, I take off the shield that's on the back side of this. I've seen these shields come off in the past, especially high RPM applications, and when they come off inside the transmission, it ruins the rear planet and it ruins the ring gear assembly that it's splined into. So I know some guys will TIG weld or tack weld that shield on. I just take it off. Once again, it's just a me thing. The front planet, this is the old one. It was actually in good shape. It was a 4-pinion, but we actually upgraded to an AC Delco 5-pinion front planet. It just has one more gear to disperse the load. Instead of 4 gears, it has 5. Had really good results with these. And they're actually a gear that's in the 4L65, 4L70, and 4L75 transmissions anyways. The sun gear is a Sonics piece. A lot of you guys probably know about the Smart Shell, or you can look it up. But they're a thick welded flange, heat-treated splines where it goes onto the rear sun gear, heat-treated lugs where they spline onto the reverse input drum. Way better than OEM. Plus they have a rolled spline assembly instead of a sharp edge, which eliminates, on the factory GM ones, these were known for snapping off because the backside had a sharp edge, and these are rolled and radiused. Also comes with their special overrun race and their Torrington bearing, so it eliminates that little plastic or metal tang washer that was between the the drive shell and the overrun race. It eliminated that plastic washer, and it went with the Torrington bearing. The rear sun gear was pretty toasted. It lost a lot of its case hardening on the drive side of the teeth, so we got in a brand new AC Delco rear sun gear. I'm going to dig up in my archive a really good used sun gear for this 5-pinion planet. The sun gear that originally came in the 4-pinion, once again, had lost quite a bit of its case hardening, and it was looking a little rough. So anyways, we're going to dig up a good used one. The low roller sprag is a brand new Borg Warner in place of the factory GM one, which had the little light duty springs all the way around. The band, which I'm kind of jumping ahead a bit, the band is an Alto extra wide 2.4 band instead of the regular narrow high carbon band that these transmissions came with. And I'll go over this once again when we're actually building the reverse input drum. And then lastly, the intermediate shaft, or the reaction shaft as it's called, is an updated piece from Sonex. It's chrome moly steel, heat-treated splines, has a tow haul bearing that goes between this reaction shaft assembly and the drive shell, and they're just a really tough piece. They're way less prone to fretting and wear and tear on the splines like the factory GM ones. This is the one that came out of this transmission, and I showed you in the previous video where the splines were all fretted and really beaten. I mean, this assembly was super loose, and then plus where the bushing rode actually still feels pretty good, but there's a tiny few little flat spots here and there. But the main thing that makes this junk is that these splines, where it splines into the input planet ring gear, it's completely shot and fretted out. So the Sonex piece is definitely a tough part, and it's the way to go for any performance. Plus these splines won't twist out and spiral off and snap. This goes into the rear planet, whereas the factory GM ones sometimes would break if it had enough torque. So that kind of covers everything for the midsection of the transmission back, and we're going to be skipping forward. So the next time we have another video, everything will be assembled midsection and back, and then we'll be going from the midsection towards the pump on the next video. Yeah, I'll inspect that in just a minute. All the lip seals are installed on the piston, all lubricated in the back of the case. Bushings installed, and it's all lubricated with ATF also. Slip here. So the low and reverse piston is in now. Got the snap ring and the spring assembly all in place. Just air checked it. The low side holds pressure just fine. No problems. And the reverse side, which I always take the check ball out anyways, you got to kind of give it a little extra air, but we're good. So we're ready to start putting in the rear ring gear assembly and bearings and low and reverse clutches.
So we've been doing a little bit of behind the scenes prep work. Last night we realized that the rear output ring gear hub, the splines are about 50% left. You can see the lines on the far side of the splines. Yeah, they're about 50%, which obviously with a high torque application, we're not going to want to use this. We don't want to risk those splines shearing off. We did some digging in the back because GM, AC Delco, no aftermarket company makes these front planets anymore, or front sun gears anymore. So this is the old one, and as you can see on the drive side, there's some broach marks. The bluing has come off. There's a good one right there. So this guy was pretty toast. We wanted to find a new one, and we did. Here's the new one here with new bushings pressed in.
Yeah, so we took a really good gear that we found in my stash of transmission parts, cleaned it up in a glass bead machine because it had just a little bit of surface rust on it, nothing major. But all the drive side and the driven side of the teeth on this gear are perfect. There was no pitting, no case hardening, wearing away, nothing down to the soft meat of the gear. Everything was in really good shape. And so then I went ahead and pressed in brand new Federal Mogul bushings and set them at the proper depth. so that way it won't be blocking off the oil feed holes for the output shaft. And so everything is all good to go on this part. And then the ring gear, we ended up, in a previous video, we showed you how this was completely worn and chewed up from the 3/4 clutch pack failing. And it was just a mess, not even worth trying to take a risk on reusing that. So once again, I dug in my arsenal of transmission parts and I found a long spline input planet ring gear. So it's the same length of the splines for the 3/4 clutch pack. So I can actually add a few extra clutches to it and they'll still be fully engaged. Very, very important if you're doing 4L60, 4L65, or 4L70, and you're going to be putting extra clutches in that 3/4 clutch pack, you have to make sure that the ring gear for the input planet is a long spline, so that way you can put in the extra clutches. If you happen to have a short spline, which is the earlier 700 4L60, these splines actually end right about here. So you only have from here over for splines and nothing here. And if you try to get in 8 or 9 clutches, it wouldn't even be engaging on the splines whatsoever. So anyways, long story short is we had the proper one. I ran it through the glass beater, cleaned it all up, checked the drive and the drive and the coast side of the gear teeth for the ring gear. Everything is perfect on this. And so once again, so this is good to go and replaces the really bad one that was chewed up. Well, we got the new reverse input drum all ready to go. Got the bronze bushings installed, front and back for both sides of the stator. You can see. I don't like the aluminum bushings. I always like to convert everything to the bronze bushings. The new seals are installed on the piston. All the steels and the backing plate, snap rings are all cleaned up and ready to go. And then I got the clutches soaking over there in ATF. They've been soaking for probably a good half hour. It's only necessary to do it about 15 minutes, but anyways. Okay, so we're getting ready to load the reverse input drum. I got the Belleville steel in there. I've already air checked the piston. Everything checked out good. So now we're going to start loading the clutch drum. So the steel goes against the washer. And then we go clutch. Then we go plate. Clutch. Plate. Clutch, plate, and one last clutch, and then the backing plate and the snap ring, and then I'll air check it one more time, and then I'll verify the clearance of this clutch, which, if memory serves me right, is right around 80 thousandths, but I will double check on that. And we're done with the reverse input clutch. Now that is not a crack in the piston. That's the bleed hole, which is opposite where I'm putting air in. The bleed hole is up here, but there's oil sitting down there because I'm tipping it on its side, and so the air is coming out that hole and going that direction and just stirring up the bubbles. But it's not leaking, there's no cracks, there's no blown seals. But if there was no oil in there, you wouldn't see any little bubbling. But once again, that's just from the little bleed hole that I always put 180 degrees opposite, the bleed hole that's in the aluminum piston, 180 degrees opposite of the air feed hole, or I should say not the air feed hole, but the feed hole for the drum. So this is a quick little video of a few things we've kind of gotten ready for the pre-assembly of the transmission. Remember, we're still waiting for the output ring gear hub, which is supposed to be showing up in the next couple of days, but we're getting the sub-assemblies built and stuff. So brand new rear sun gear. the factory bushing that would normally come in the sun gear or in a rebuild kit is this width here. And the bushing that I put in the sun gear is an extra wide Sonex, and it's actually a finish in place. So we had to press the bushing in and then get it to the proper depth, and then we had to hone it, and we actually take probably about 3.5 thousandths out of it, so that way it would just slide over the reaction shaft. And so, like I say, if you didn't hone it out, it wouldn't even fit past the register of the shaft itself. So you hone it, once again, take about 3.5 thousandths, and then it slides nice and easy. And before we do all the assembly, we'll put assembly gel and ATF mix on both the shaft and the bushing, and that way there's no friction as they get to know each other, and the transmission starts to kind of break in as it gets some miles on it. The next thing is the low and reverse center support, extra wide low and reverse Borg Warner roller clutch. All the late model 4L60Es and the 4L60s, and even the late 700s, they all had the wide style sprag or roller clutches they're called. Some of them, the 82 to about 87, use the narrow ones, but if you get a center support in like that has the narrow one, just scrap it out and then get yourself a later design center support that actually takes the wide roller clutch. They have a lot more torque capacity, and they're just a lot more stable as far as if you ever have to put it in manual low, or if you're backing out of a ravine in reverse. This is definitely a lot stronger than the narrow one. The next thing is that the forward sprag overrun race assembly is updated. So this is your forward sprag, brand new Borg Warner double cage that's going in there. Everything's been honed and polished to make sure that it has a nice good finish on it for the new 29 element double cage sprag. So once again, everything is all honed and cleaned, and it'll be oiled up before we do the assembly. But the main thing is that the overrun hub is updated. So the factory one is this one here, and it's just mild steel, real thin. These are real prone to cracking all the way around. The updated one is the Sonex, and it's billet steel. I believe it's 4330 steel. I'm not 100%. You have to look that up, but I'm pretty sure it's 4330. And anyways, these are a very, very stout overrun hub. They will not break. They can just take a beating, and you don't have to worry about ever the center section breaking out like the OEMs do. So if you have any kind of high torque capacity unit that you're going to be doing a lot of towing, plowing, a lot of downshifting from fourth to third and third to second, so on and so forth, you're definitely going to want to use this. And also if you do the 2-3 update shift valve from Sonex that goes in the valve body, this is just even more of a bonus if you go with that updated 2-3 valve. So pretty much the very last thing, and we kind of talked about this briefly in the previous video, is that along with the long spline input ring gear front planet that's being replaced, once again the reaction shaft hub assembly has also been updated. Once again, it's chrome moly, updated from Sonex. They can just take a beating. You don't have to worry about the splines twisting off. And the main thing is that since they are chrome moly steel, this surface where the bushing for the rear sun gear rides and where these spline in to the input ring gear, you don't have to worry about these teeth fretting and getting thinner and thinner and thinner, and then this whole thing becoming loose inside the ring gear, because the chrome moly steel, it really wears very, very well, and it really can take a beating. So this is the little updates for this particular little moment in time, and we will continue as more and more stuff progresses.
So I got the reaction shaft in the ring gear. As you can see, the little notches in the reaction shaft, you want to make sure you line them up with the little feed hole the hydraulic feed hole.
And the feed hole is what centrifugally, as oil accumulates around the ring gear teeth, inertia, as this gear is turning, inertia, oil is shooting out of that little hole in all 5 spots, if you look at, and it's actually then shooting out through this hole here, all the way around, and that's what's helping to cool the 3/4 clutch pack. So it's actually kind of a dual feed. It gets the oil that's trapped inside this out, and it helps to cool the clutch pack. So we have the reaction hub now installed into the ring gear. Got the snap ring in place, and everything is nice and tight. Before with the old one, it just had a ton of play back and forth like that, and this one is nice and tight. That tiny little noise you hear is just a little bit of play between the teeth of the reaction hub and the ring gear, which is normal, but when this is all immersed in transmission oil and the transmission is in operation, there'll be no noise whatsoever. But yeah, so she's all ready to go, all ready for the new bearing and the new planet to go in, and then this part is done and ready to set aside. So we will continue. Here. Easy peasy. Well, today we received our rear ring gear output hub, brand new from AC Delco. Nice new splines, made of steel. Very, very nice piece. Compared to the old one, which had a lot of miles on it, and the splines were 50% pounded out, like we had talked about in the previous video. And there was a lot of fretting on these teeth that spline into the rear planet ring gear assembly. So once again, this was junk. It was just too risky with the LS engine that we're going to be putting in this someday. The remaining splines on this definitely would have stripped out. Literally 50% of the splines were left. So this new piece, once again, it's solid, new, ready to go. And it fits on the output shaft nice and easy. And it has a nice tight feel to it. The old one, that when we slipped it on there, it had a lot of play back and forth. So every time you would have put it into gear or accelerated hard, this would have been slamming against the splines, and it eventually would have stripped out. So once again, brand new piece, ready to go, and we will proceed with the next steps. All right, well, we got the rear ring gear hub in the ring gear, and so we're ready to put the snap ring on. And then this little assembly is done and ready to go into the case in just a few minutes. So once again, one more thing finished, on to the next step. So we got the brand new bearing on the back side of the hub. It's all lubricated with assembly trans gel, and it is going in the case. And the next will be the rear planet after we double check the pinion gear and get the bearing installed on that, and then that'll be going in, then we'll start loading the clutches. So the planet's all ready to go in. I've got each little pinion inspected and wrote down what the thrust sizes were on each one between the pinion gear and the actual carrier itself. Brand new Torrington bearing on it from Sonics, ready to go in. There we go. Now the clutches start going in. We're loading the low and reverse clutches in the back of the case. You start with a wave. And then the steel. And got the frictions already pre-soaking. another steel. And friction. And another steel. Come on. And a friction. Another steel. Friction. Last steel. And the last friction. And of course, that's the one that doesn't want to slide on. There we go. Then the anti-clunk spring goes in, and the center support, and then that snap ring, and then we put in the drive shell. Okay, all of the clutches are in the back of the case. Now the rear sun gear goes in, got our assembly lube on the extra wide Sonex bushing that we put in. And so now that goes in. Give it a little spin, make sure everything is good to go on that. I got the clunk spring installed in the case. If you zoom in, you can see that. And now the center support. So the center support has the new spring and roller in it, and the overrun race, which is made by Sonex to go with their smart shell. And so now that goes in. Oh, and by the way, this race is smooth for the sun shell part, and then it has the lugs for the planet. Don't have the race flip the other way around, or you will be tearing the transmission back apart again. All right, finally got the center support in. The clunk spring fought me just a little bit, but center support's in and bottomed and locked in. And I'm gonna put the snap ring in, and then I'm gonna air check everything. So that's it for right now. So I have the Sonex Smart Shell and the Torrington bearing with a little bit of assembly gel to hold it in place. And the bearing is all set, ready to go in. And then the next step is we're going to be loading the AC Delco 5-pinion brand new Planet and the bearing and the shim inside the new reaction shell and ring gear, and then putting the tow haul bearing on the back side of the Sonex reaction shaft, and the whole assembly will be going in all in one piece. Put in the output shaft and the snap ring, and then we are all built and ready to start doing the forward drum. So got the tow haul bearing on, got the shim down inside the hub. All 5 pinions are verified, the play and written down on the carrier. The new bearing with assembly oil or assembly lube is on there. The bearing goes on, black race goes in towards the shim. And she's installed and ready to go in the transmission. Installed, ready for the output shaft. So the output shaft is ready to go in. Push on the planet to kind of keep everything from dislodging. There we go. She's locked in there, and then I tip it on its side and I put the snap ring on. And there's going to be different opinions on the right and wrong way of doing this, but this is the method that works for me. So, snap ring's on, shaft's all in, everything turns nice and free. Has approximately about 22 to 25 thousandths worth of play up and down, which is perfect for the rear gear train. And the sun gear goes on. And then before we load in the forward drum, I will take transmission fluid, Dexron 3, and I will pour it around here because I want it to go down the input or the output shaft and around the gears and the bearings and all that. Because some of you might say, well, hey, why are you putting it together dry? Well, the critical bushings inside all had assembly gel on them. This is going to have ATF poured all over it before I put in the drum. So it'll be completely coated and covered, and there won't be anything that'll be dry on initial fire up and road test. We're working on some of the sub-assemblies right now, just kind of a little bit pre-work before we actually do the main work on the transmission. And I'm going to be drilling out some of the drain back holes, oversize, chamfering the drain back holes on the pump, doing the same thing on the stator half of the pump. I've got some mods that I like to do, once again, for the drain back holes, and little techniques for the pressure regulator valve and TCC valve in the pump. And just basically getting things ready so that when the case is out of the jet washer and we start assembling the main transmission, a lot of these assemblies then can be quickly installed and clearances set, so it'll kind of expedite the whole build process. And I'll be doing the same thing for the forward drum and everything else throughout the whole transmission. So more to come.
So here he is, filling out the drain back hole, opening it up to a bigger bore size.
And the whole purpose of this is that as fluid accumulates behind this front seal and it can't get through the smaller GM drain back hole that was originally drilled and set at the factory, this oversized drain back hole will allow the built up ATF to quickly get out from behind the seal and prevent seal blowout. And it's like I say, I'm going to drill through this. I'm going to drill through the stator half of the pump, the same hole size, and it really makes any fluid that accumulates, it allows it to quickly get back to the pan.
So I made it all the way through. We bored the hole out. We drilled all the way in. Still got to the very back of there. And
Drill through the backside and then put a little chamfer. So we're installing the torque converter bushing in the pump. Gotta get it at the correct depth. Don't want to go in too deep, but not too shallow either. And then I'll take the ring, the rotor ring, the snowflake, and the rotor, and I'll set that on top. and I'll make sure that the top of this bushing is not touching or interfering at all with the snowflake or the rotor, because you need to have working clearance between the two. You do not want them dragging. And if I need to set it a little deeper, I will. And then I'll finish staking the bushing, and then this part then is ready to put the new rotor and slide and all the vanes, and get this part all, the sub-assembly built and ready to go for when we finish up the pump half. So here's an example. I put the old rotor ring, the old rotor snowflake, and the rotor on top, and this just shows how I need to set the bushing deeper, because the snowflake is just barely touching the top of that bushing. So I just need to drive that bushing in just a little bit deeper. But I just wanted to show you guys that, just so you kind of get a visual. If you're building your own pump, you want to make sure that the top of that bushing is not touching the snowflake. And the snowflake, a lot of builders call it different terms, but the snowflake is what a lot of shops will call this piece here that goes on the back side of your rotor. So this is the stator half of the pump. I've already got the input bushing removed, output bushing removed, cut off the reverse input Teflon rings on the back, collapsed the filter seal very carefully so not to damage the bore up. Now I'm going to take out the TCC valve train and the boost valve train, and then run everything through solvent, do my little modifications for the drain back holes and my little chamfer tricks that I like to do, and then start the assembly of putting the bushings in and putting in the valve train. So here is our 2-4 band servo assembly. We got the Corvette 092 piston. We have everything all laid out and ready to go. This is the old piston that came out of it. This is a 553, and once again, this transmission came out of a 2-wheel drive truck, and so that was with a V8, a 4.8 liter V8 LS, and this was the standard piston that came in them. A real soft shift for second and fourth, and then the third accumulator. So upgrading it for the firmness of the shift is the Corvette servo, and then the valve body separator plate, and then the shifting springs and the pressure regulating spring for the pump is all going to work into making a firmer 1, 2, 2, 3, and 3, 4 straight across the board. These springs here are actually go inside. This comes from a Transgo kit. These springs go inside the main cushion spring, and then all three of these springs then go into the inside part of the servo. And I've got a little special jig set up to compress these springs with the cover, and then getting the snap ring installed, and then assembling the whole thing and getting it ready for going in the case. So I just want to kind of show you a little quick vid of the two different servos, the performance and the OEM stalker, and we will proceed to the next steps.